I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
Right, all right, everybody. Here we are. It is Sunday. It is the third Sunday of the month. That means it is monthly book club time here on the Let's Get Growing show here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host today. We've got a great show for you today. Hopefully, I'm going to start right off by saying that you might even be noticing video glitches and this and that from my part here. Still experiencing some technical difficulties. We're doing some best we can with what we've got at the moment. So hopefully we're still going to have a really, really great show for you here today. It's another book club, like we said. So we've got um, to this month we're featuring Cool Season Gardener by Bill Thorness. Yeah, really, really great book. Been loving reading this book the last month and everything. So it's gonna be really great to have Bill on with us here in just a few minutes too, because that's gonna be another thing is we're gonna switch things up just a little bit today. We're going to jump right into our book club. Bill's got a place he's got to be today, so we're gonna make sure we can get him out a little bit earlier today than what we normally do. So instead of doing our In the Garden live segment with our friend Mr. MBC joining us today, we're going to do the In the Garden segment here after our book club. And because we're dealing with some technical issues and all that sort of stuff, I kind of want to run through things and get started with this as soon as we possibly can as well too. Because one of the things I think that benefits the show right now with our technical issues is having our co-host with us today. So how fortunate of us to have a really excellent co-host, our good friend Mr. NBC, Mark Roche Colbert, joining with us here in just a minute as well, too. Um, but here, let's see if we can do this real quick, though. Right at the top of the show, if you can, click that like button, hit subscribe, as well as the bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming shows and live streams. Share with all your friends. Let them know that we're here on the Urban Gardener channel every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. for all of you over in the UK as well, too. Thank you for joining with us. And a big, huge shout out to all of you who are watching with us on our replay. Thank you for watching the replay. Really, really appreciate you watching on your time. Definitely drop into our comments below. Let us know you are here. Let us know what you've got going on. And I'm already starting to see issues here. So hopefully we can get through this today, like I said here. So if you do have any questions or comments and you're joining with us live right now, definitely for our guests and all of that, drop those into the chat there and put those in big bold capital letters too so we can see the questions from the conversation. And again, thank you everybody for being here today. Real quick here, just want to again say thank you to our good friend and facilitator of the show, Jay Dixon. Thank you for joining us from Huron County, Midwestern Ontario, Canada. Keep an eye out for links and all of that in the chat from our good friend Jay. And thank you, Jay, for all your help and all the help to come too as we're dealing with some of these technical issues still here today. We got our other moderator, Adam, joining us from right up the road here in Central Point, Oregon. Thank you, Adam, for being here today. Great to have you. Let's see here. Let's say hi. And all right, I see Dusty Flats in the conversation there. Got Rick joining us again from the future over in tomorrow, basically on Monday morning in Australia right now. Thanks, Rick, for getting up nice and early there in Australia to come hang out with us. Really awesome to have you here today. All right, all right. Yeah, yeah. Like MKP saying here, video is glitchy. Oh my gosh. Hopefully you guys can hear me well. This is our the real backup of everything is that hopefully you guys can hear me all right. I know things are a little glitchy at the moment. It's probably going to continue that way with my feed. Hopefully you guys can hear me, but That's why we're going to go ahead and just kind of jump right into things today. Let me switch things up here real quick here, and we're going to bring in our friend. And that way, hopefully, if anything really does happen on my end, we'll have our co-host with us here today. So let's go ahead and welcome into the show our good friend, Mr. MBC.
Hey
Let's see if
everybody,
this
how's it
works. Oh,
going?
there we go. All right, here we go. All right, well, at least we got our good friend Mark here on with us as well. And hopefully, again, as we were talking before the show, if anything really does ultimately happen to me or I drop off or something like that, Mark could definitely handle things, I think. I think he's
As,
got enough experience with us now, right?
yeah, exactly. We may wind up talking about just this and that, whatever's in front of me. If Enoch blanks out, but I got a few good gardening books. I got last month's book that we reviewed. I got this month's book. I got next month's book. So I got plenty of material to talk about.
Excellent, excellent. And you even got next books already. Great, great. That's awesome. Again, too, good reason for everybody to also hang on through our show today as we'll announce our next month's book as well, too, coming
Here's the
up here
backside of
after our
it. No,
conversation.
no,
Oh, there's the back of the book. There you go.
not. We don't know what it is exactly just yet. It's still to be
Right on,
revealed, right,
right
Enoch?
on. Excellent. Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. We still got to get through this really great book.
I
Cool
like how
Season Gardener. What a great selection, Mark. I'm really,
I know,
you really
right?
bring it
And
with some of your selections for sure. This is really great.
no, this is a great. It's so timely right now too, because at least in the Pacific Northwest, now is the moment to act, right? I mean, there's a lot of things to do now, right now, exactly right toward the end of July,
Mm-hmm.
that are going to keep you in vegetables all winter long. So this is a good conversation to be having today. Very timely.
Yes, very, and really for me too, really kind of a good one as well as it's something that's always kind of challenged me a little bit through the last, well, not the last couple of seasons, 'cause I haven't really put anything, but I spent a couple of years just kind of like, okay, how am I going to really extend my season, really make sure I'm going and growing right into and maybe even through my winter time here. And haven't done as well at it. I want to get myself back on it, keep and get some things figured out. So it's really timely for me as well too. So hopefully I'm going to have to be able to take away some really good things here from this book and apply them this year and this fall coming up again too. Like you said, great timing for people to be thinking about even in the hot of the summertime right now,
Mm,
their cool season gardens, right? You wouldn't
yeah, I
really
mean
think
it's
so, you wouldn't be thinking you're thinking about cool weather crops when the hot of summer, but it is really the best time to be thinking about it.
yeah, certain things you got to get. A lot of things are just like in suspended animation for the winter, which means you have to get them through their growth cycle by the time winter hits. So I think that's where there's a bit of a there's an overlap of the seasons. You got all your hot weather stuff that's still coming on, that's needing pruning and tying and timing and, fertilizing and mulching and watering. But then
Hmm.
you have to be willing to just do this little overlay for about a month, maybe
Yeah,
amp up the crazy for about a month. So you're kind of juggling winter and summer, but then you coast. The winter is easy. I mean, once you get there, it's awesome. You
yeah.
don't have the weed pressure. For us in the Northwest, the rain comes, no watering. It just go out and harvest. Then it becomes super easy.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Excellent, excellent. And like I said, a little bit different rundown of a show today. We're going to be jumping right into things today. What we're going to do real quick, though, is we're going to take our first break real quick. And as soon as we get back, it's book club time. All
Let's
right?
do it. Let's
Sounds
jump
good.
right in with
Let's
Bill. We already talked to Bill. He's lined up. Let's do it.
let's do it. Be right back.
Hey, gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in
Is it?
just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits.
Right, all right. There we go. Here we are. We're back now, and it's time for, you ready? The monthly gardening book club.
I like that.
All
I like that
right.
music, Enoch. That's real. That's real motivational music. Dun, 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 dun,
Get
dun,
it
dun,
going. I
dun,
know.
dun,
I'm
dun,
finding
dun.
the cool little, fun little ones for those, for sure. Definitely. All right. All right. Let's bring on to the show to talk about this really, really great book that he wrote, Mr. Bill Thorness, author of Cool Season Gardener. All right, Bill.
Hey,
Thanks.
Bill,
Oh, all
welcome.
right. There we go.
Hello.
Switch that up.
How's it going?
It's going great. How about you?
Good, good. Nice to be here. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
thanks for joining us from a little ways from your home.
Yeah, you bet.
I guess that's the power of
Yeah.
remote
Yeah.
these
Great.
days, right?
Just
Yeah. That
keep it
is.
going wherever you're at.
You can kind
That's
of be
right.
anywhere. I was on a
right. We
call
can.
this morning. I may be going to Nepal in December for this really interesting sustainability and regional planning. So, it was 6:45 for me. It was like 7:30 for all the Nepalis and various other people from various places. It was like, all right, this is awesome. This is some of the benefits of technology, right? That we can do this kind of thing.
Yeah, when I travel around, I
Yeah.
really love to see what other people are doing in their gardens. Take a walk through the countryside in England, and you just see all these techniques that are applicable to your own garden in the maritime Northwest. And it's just, wow, I feel at home when I see
Right.
that.
Well, you said you're in San Francisco area right now, so I'm sure you can, if you have time for a stroll there, I'm sure there's a lot of tips to be garnered there too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a little bit different climate in the South Bay than we have in Seattle. But if you're in San Francisco, it's another little bit different climate, cooler,
Mm.
wetter. What did Mark Twain say? The coolest winter I ever had was summer in San Francisco or something. That was mean. It's a beautiful, wonderful place.
Wow.
But when I researched this book, I actually visited the Garden for the Environment in San Francisco. I saw that on your
Oh, that's an awesome place.
one of your sheets there. Very
Mm-hmm.
cool place. And community gardening in San Francisco, they really know how to make the most of their situation. So you can do
Yeah, I
this
really thought that
type
Garden
of
for the Environment was a
gardening
really
in a lot of
amazing
places.
place.
Yeah.
All right. Are you guys hearing me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
No? Yeah, you are here? Okay, excellent. All right. Excellent, excellent. Again, so thanks for joining with us today, Bill. Really awesome to have you here. Really great book. I've been really enjoying reading about it. But before we really dig into the book, let's just tell us who Bill Thorne is. Let us know a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your gardening experience and all of that. Just a little. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, sure. Well, we did not have a winter garden when I was growing up on the farm in North Dakota. A little bit too harsh of an environment
Mm.
for winter gardening.
Yeah.
But we did have a big garden on the farm, and we grew. It was mostly a wheat farm. And after college, I moved to the Seattle area, and I started looking around, and I realized, hey, you can grow things year round here.
Mm.
It's green all winter. And
Mhm.
so I fell in with a gang called Seattle Tilth, which is a pretty great organic gardening organization. They're now called Tilth Alliance. They do
Okay.
education, they do community building, and organic gardening education, research, a lot of stuff. So I learned a lot from them about growing in our region, my adopted region.
Mhm.
Uh, starting in the mid 1980s. So I've been doing this for a long time. My book came out in 2013. So it's, but I think it's an evergreen topic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I still give a lot of talks and meet people who are using the book, and fortunately they're finding it holds up over time. A lot of the techniques are still being done in community gardens and backyard gardens and rooftop gardens, in places where you can do this. So um, I've also written a book about heirloom vegetables called Edible Heirlooms.
Mm.
I was the editor for Tilth for a long time, and produced their Maritime Northwest Garden Guide. And we just are starting meetings to do another edition, a third edition of the Maritime Northwest Garden Guide that'll be out in fall of 2027. So now we're updating our techniques. We're looking at, all the things that climate change has done to the environment and to our
Mhm.
ecosystems, all of the techniques that have come on that we've learned about in the last 10 years, things like regenerative agriculture and hugelculture, and less tilling, less fertilizer using,
Mm.
more working with the ecosystem and the biological processes already in the soil.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a really great update for that guide. And if you garden in a maritime climate, whether it's in the Northwest or elsewhere, the Maritime Northwest Garden Guide is really a great tool, and I'm so happy to be back working on that again.
That's great. That I'm also a transplant to the Northwest. I live in Portland, and when I first came out here, and I started farming a little bit in New Hampshire, just as a kind of post-college thing. But when I came out here, I was like, I grabbed Steve Solomon's book, Growing Vegetables West of the Cascades, and then the Maritime Northwest Garden Guide. And those were my two like garden Bibles, one hand and the other. Those things guided me to
Mhm.
become a Northwest gardener. So thank you. I didn't know that was partly your work.
Oh yeah, well, and Steve was so great. So in my research, I'm a journalist otherwise, and I've written other books, but in my research, I have really met a lot of great people, and it was hard to interview Steve Solomon because he lives in Tasmania now.
Oh yeah, uh-huh.
So
Mhm.
unfortunately, but we had a long distance conversation about my book and techniques and things, and so that was really fun to actually get his input. He's a great guy.
Yeah, kind of a foundational figure. He started he
No
develops
kidding.
territorial seeds, right? I think he
He
bought it from
started
somebody and then
Territorial
really
Seeds.
expanded it, which is an
Yeah,
amazing regional seed company and offers a lot of stuff for the cool
yeah.
weather garden.
Um, so I have a little bit of a technical issue myself, guys. I'm going to have to log off for about 10 seconds, and then I will be right back. I apologize, but give me a minute and I'll be right back with you.
Absolutely. We'll do that. All
So
right. All right. Again,
everybody's having
technical
everybody's
issues
having
all over
tech
for
issues
everybody.
today, huh, Enoch?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it makes me feel a little bit better than I think, right?
Exactly. Well, just so
Right.
much of this
But
stuff, like you just were saying before, a windstorm came through Southern Oregon, right? And all your modems are screwed up. It's like, how do you control for
yeah.
that, right? It's just like,
Right, exactly. And who knew? Like I said that. And then but then the problem then goes into I got other issues. We switched the computer out and then I find out last minute, okay, well, wait a minute. Now we got the internet all fixed. Now it's your computer's the issue. But I'm in a situation where it's like I don't want to switch just in case something really, at the last minute or something. So it was just kind of a decision to say, hey, we'll try to work our best through today
yeah, yeah.
and then work and see what we can do to make other changes for later down the road, hopefully. But Yeah, it is what it is when you're doing live production like this, as we've been saying and I've been dealing with, So like I said, I know my video, as I've warned everybody, my video is glitchy. I'm hoping that the audio though still sounds and you can hear me. So I'm gonna just keep talking, even if it is glitchy on the video. So let me know though if you do start hearing audio or I completely drop out. If somebody definitely jumps in and lets me know in the chat or something real quick would be great. But
And with
thank
that,
you all for your patience. I really appreciate it. And again, just kind of the way it goes. How things growing in the garden?
oh yeah, things are. I mean, it's like just like what we're saying. I'm seeing in the chat too, like, hey, I'm starting cabbage today, this sort of thing.
Yeah,
I'm just getting ready to plant all the Brussels sprouts. I'm putting in. Last week I sowed up a bunch of overwintering broccoli, so it's exactly that thing. It's like I'm soaking beet seed. I just planted carrots for the late fall and winter. So it's that squeeze. I'm also going away for 6 days starting on Thursday. So
mm,
it, that's the problem with being a gardener, man. You got to stay on tasks, and yet the
yeah,
summer is the time when everyone else wants to have the fun. So it's like trying to balance those things. I got a wedding in the family we're going back east for, which is great. I
yeah,
want to do that kind of stuff. I want to have some time, just downtime. But then in my mind, I'm
yeah.
thinking, oh my God, I got to get all this done before, got to get this done because this is the window. There's a little window
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
Anyway,
Oh man, in vacation time and having to plan for that stuff because there's a bunch of planning ahead of time, and then I think I mentioned this recently is this idea that a vacation doesn't really feel too much like a vacation if you're a real serious gardener with a lot of spaces that you've got to be thinking
ah,
about because even if you've prepared, you're still thinking about it. You're still like,
yeah,
okay, is that timer gonna, with me without me checking on it? Is it gonna be doing the thing it's supposed to? You know what I
yeah.
mean? Or other things. People were relying on. If you're relying on someone to check on something for you as well too, you're like, oh, you want to like remind them, but you don't want to remind them, but you're thinking about it while you're on vacation.
or it always happens. I look at the weather forecast. It's going to be like, oh, cool, like 82 to 85. All right, that's doable for 5 days. Then I look at it again the day I'm gone. It's been upgraded. It's like we're having a 5 day heat wave. Everything's going to be 101 for 5 days. I'm like, no,
Right?
it never fails. It always does that. Always does that.
Always, always fun. That's so funny.
So that is why,
What a
if I go away, I much prefer to go away like in December or January. Like just get me
hmm
down somewhere like to Southern Cal or something like that where the weather's nice and dry and sunny. And I have no concerns. I have no, it's like,
yeah.
okay, the garden is shut down, no big worries. Everything's chilling literally, and I can chill. But in the summer, it's a mixed bag.
Man, what I was just thinking though too, as you were saying that was like, how cool would it be is that you take your winter vacation, for a gardener that does make the best sense, right? We take a winter vacation. We don't have as much to worry about, barring what we're going to get started in our cool season garden after this conversation today. But, you know, uh, you know, how much we got to worry about in the winter's the best time to do that. But what a great way opportunity to maybe take that trip to the other side of the globe, to the other hemisphere, and go to like
Mm,
Australia or South America or somewhere and see their when they're in the prime of their garden time. You know what I mean? So yours is
great.
in tucked away in the winter, right? And you're off down there watching and checking out with the oh man, that would be a dream vacation for a gardener right there, huh?
Totally. And for us, and this in the Northwest, that it can be real gray during the winter. So for me, like getting away during the winter to somewhere sunny, it doesn't even have to be that far away. Just, like I said, I went down to Palm Springs last year for a couple of days. I think we did one of our shows when I was down there. And just getting 3 days of sun is so nice to come back and then it's kind of resets you emotionally. So I don't know. That's just when I prefer to take my vacation. But other people are not on that cycle, and they're like, "Hey, we're getting married in the summer." You're like, "What? How come it couldn't have been December?
I know, please. I know
Please, we
summer's the
just get
best
married
time,
in
I
the summer,
suppose.
please." I know it's terrible weather, but it's better for me.
All right. I think I see Bill here back in the background here. Give me a thumbs up, Bill, when you're ready on the screen there, and then we'll bring you back on here. Looks like we're good to go. All right. Well, let's get Bill back on here with us. Let's dig right into this book too. While we got Bill here.
I'm so sorry about that, guys. My computer started giving me messages. I switched to my phone, so
There you go.
I
Can you
really
turn your phone
apologize.
sideways?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
there we go.
there we
Yeah,
go.
There we
yeah.
go. There we go. Right on. Right on. No problem. Again, too, I was just telling Mark, it says, you kind of saved me and how I feel about the show today, too, because I'm like, it just bothers me so much with the technical difficulties having someone like yourself take your time to be here on the show with us today, too. So technical difficulties all around makes me feel just a little bit better.
Yeah,
All
Like,
right,
let's
Bill,
get into this. Cool.
let me toss you
While
the
we got you
first
here, let's get
question
into.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get right into it.
Okay,
Let's talk
so
about the cool season gardener.
we are conditioned to think of 4 seasons: spring, summer, winter, and
Mm,
fall and winter. You make the case for
good one.
7 seasons in your book. Tell us
Yeah,
about that.
Yeah,
Tell us
yeah,
about
yeah,
the
yeah,
7
yeah.
seasons.
I loved it.
Well, when you're in a mild climate and you're thinking about growing food year round, um, spring, spring could be 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
And over the course of that time, and winter might be very short. Um, and so summer also might be very short in our climate, but fall might be very long. So I tried to break it up so that I could do a better job of planning when I'm going to plant and when I'm going to transplant, and calculate the growing season for various crops. So I broke it up into winter, early spring, mid spring, and late spring,
Yep.
and summer, a short summer, and then early fall and late fall. And in all of those seasons but winter, you can be starting and planting and cultivating plants. And in winter, you are more in protection mode and in harvest mode in my garden. So yeah, that's I just rewrote the calendar.
Yeah, no, I love it. And, it reminds me, there's a cookbook by Josh McFadden, who's also a Northwest chef. And the title of his cookbook is 6 Seasons. So great minds are thinking alike here. They're chopping up the calendar into different modes, simply because you say, like, spring for us, for example, is such a long and maddening season, right? So when you chop it up, it becomes a bit more manageable to think like, oh yeah, this is like, a kind of a fall spring. Early spring is different than mid-spring, and late spring, which I think you put all the way to the 15th of July almost, right? That's
That's right. Bastille Day is the
Yeah,
end.
I
Off
like
with its
that.
head.
No, I
That's
love
the end
it.
of spring.
Yeah.
Well, I
Now,
got
some of that-
Josh beat by 1 season, so I'm very excited about that. He's only got 6, I've got 7, so I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Have
like
you
early
noticed-
spring could be mid-February, could be early spring. In a real mild climate, you might talk about planting peas by President's Day. And if you have a very warm microclimate, which is another aspect of this, as well as a protected area from harsher climatic conditions like the wind, you might be able to get a really good start with your peas in mid-February, whereas other places you might not be wanting to start them until March or mid-March even. So you could get as much as a month of a jump on the sowing of a good crop like that early in the season.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
Now, one thing I'd like to, as a little bit of a follow-up to that, you said you're working on the Maritime Garden Guide and changes for climate change. Have you noticed, even since your book is out, so now this has been 12 years, have you noticed anything different in those seasonal rhythms? I mean, summer is getting longer because Steve Solomon uses in his book,
Mhm.
he talks about cabbage summers, which are standard for the Northwest. Like, forget tomatoes, you're just getting cabbage during the summer. This is what will ripen here because it's cool. But now we're getting, tomatoes in July. Now we're in a different world.
Yeah, we're getting tomatoes in July. I think some of the winter crops are coming in earlier, such as purple sprouting broccoli or the overwintered cabbages. You might be finding brassicas really taken off earlier in the spring, and your collard greens or your mustard greens actually go into flower earlier than you expect. Hey, I sent you some of those photos. Pull up that photo, if you would, of all of the greens on the cutting board, if you can. Okay, so this was, a while ago, but this is, I went out in my garden in mid-March and I cut flower heads or buds off of all of the brassicas that were flowering at that time. So there's Russian red kale, there's purple kale, there's purple sprouting broccoli, there's broccolini, there's mizuna, there's a yellow mustard, flowering mustard called green in the snow. There's a whole bunch of things there that if you have started all these greens early enough in the fall, they're biennials and they're going to go to flower in the second season after they've vernalized and they've gotten some cold weather, and then you can just eat all those buds. And that kind of stuff seems to be coming earlier for me as well. And we're still looking into what is happening in urban gardens around our region as far as what's going to go into the garden guide. But for sure, hotter summer, these heat domes are the extreme heat can really do a number on your plants, especially if you're trying to plant for fall and winter, and then you have this heat dome hit you. There's there are some things you can do about that, but boy, it is.
That's always my challenge, though. When I say back when I was, a couple seasons back or so, that was always my challenge. Was like, okay, well, I want to start seed, I want to start my own plants, I want to get things going for a fall thing, but we're dealing with this extreme heat that just keeps getting hotter and hotter every year. The challenge gets even more and more to be able to care for tiny little seedlings and upcoming seed starts and things like that in such extreme heat and all of that. Any recommendations or things that you've come across and maybe or since the good ways in a changing climate that we're dealing with this sort of thing? Or
I think a couple of things come to mind. First thing is that in the ensuing time since this book came out, the nurseries have been getting a lot more proactive with providing fall and winter crops for us. So if you have crop failure when you're seeding in your crops, like for instance, purple sprouting broccoli, one of my favorite crops for the winter, you need to start that pretty early, like June, early June, start it from seed. If you miss that, or if you happen to go on vacation, I say no going on vacation during the growing season.
We were just talking about that while you were off.
Like, exactly.
Oh, were you? That's funny. Okay,
Yeah.
well, so, but if you miss that, if you have a problem with that, then you can go to the nurseries these days and find the starts and get them in the ground. It's what I often do when I'm starting plants in the summer, because your summer garden is full of tomatoes and things, right? Where do you start these things? I start them in small pots. These days I'm using, like 4-inch pots, because you get a little bit more soil volume than the very little cells in a 6-pack or in in, small soil blocks,
Mm-hmm.
and putting them in a shady part of the garden under some trees. That it's plenty warm for the seeds to sprout, and if they just need in the summer to be kept evenly moist. So if you have a watering system, take some of these pots and put them right under the sprinkler head that gets hit by your watering system, and then go out and do supplemental watering, misting and sprinkling them every day as they sprout. And once they germinate and come out of the ground, and then you've got a little bit of size on them, say maybe 2 or 3 sets of true leaves, then you can move them to a brighter area. And by the time you're ready to transplant them, then you've pulled out some of your summer crops, like maybe that row of carrots is now gone, or some of the salad greens are done because it's the height of summer. So that's another technique that I use a lot. And then floating row cover. You can pull up that other photo of the cloche frame with the floating row cover on it if you want. You can use your cloche frame. That's the one. You can use your cloche frame, whether it's a bunch of hoops or whatever kind of structure you have for it, and take some of this, what's called floating row cover. It's a spun bonded polyester fabric that lets light and air and water through, but it does not let the bugs through, and it also can provide some shade. So I'll put that over a garden where I've just transplanted a bunch of small plants, and that provides a little bit of shade, a little bit of cooler spot in a warm summer garden situation for those cool season crops to, the soil won't dry out as fast. You can also just lay it right over the plants, and it will float up after it gets dry. When it gets wet, it kind of gets matted down, but then it'll float up. And that stuff is really helpful. I always put that down when I'm seeding in a new row of root crops, for instance. I've got it right now. I've got it over a bunch of beets and carrots. And I keep sowing root crops every couple of weeks from this time through about mid-September. And then I will have a constant supply in the fall. And the later ones will overwinter as small plants, and then they will start growing again early in the spring. So floating row cover, I really recommend using that.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Real quick here, Mark,
different.
before I let you go, I'm sorry. I want to jump in because I do got a bunch of really great questions from David real quick. So I'm going to throw one of those out real quick. And I probably won't be able to, David. Sorry to get to all of them, but I'm going to pick one or so. I got one here. We'll drop in real quick. David from Bowtie Life asks, if someone finishes your book and feels inspired, what should their first step be this week?
This week? It depends on what kind of garden.
July now.
Yeah, it depends on what kind of garden space you have available to you. If you're growing hot summer crops and you want to put salad on your table in the fall, cultivate the space under some of your hot crops, like say your tomatoes, and throw down a salad mix of lettuces under the tomatoes and water them in. And by the time your tomatoes are done and this is assuming your tomato plants have some space and light under them, so they're not just a real dense matted plant right on the ground. I always limb up my tomatoes to about a foot above the soil so that I get air circulation around them. So that would be a great thing to do right now. Start sowing root crops like I just described, or just get a cover crop mix for your soil And when you pull out your summer crops, throw down some cover crop mix and start building your soil for next year. So those are 3 things I think you could just jump into.
Absolutely. Right on, right on. All right, Mark.
Enoch,
Sorry.
you want to do another question or
No, I'll throw it to you.
from the folks? Well, one of the things I think probably the most important takeaway that you mentioned in this book that is not well understood and not well talked about is the concept of growing degree days. So take us through that and just explain how that bit of knowledge can be helpful to a gardener. Tell us what a growing degree day is and why it's useful to a winter gardener or any gardener really.
Yeah, well, your plants need a certain amount of light in warm enough temperatures to put on some growth. And so if you have short days or if you have cool temperatures, you're not going to get as much of a vegetative growth on the young plants. They will sort of languish, or they won't sprout, or they won't really take off. But if you have a combination of warmer days and longer days, you'll get enough of the right kind of climate to be able to grow to get your plants growing. And the growing degree days is a calculation of the amount of sun and the amount of warmth that combine in your area to give you that condition. And it varies by where you are, how much light you have. In the northern climate, we have longer days in the summer, and we have cooler days. So it's a little bit. You really have to kind of sit with those concepts for a while and observe in your own garden what happens in the seasons and what happens throughout the year to be able to understand more how the growing degree days, how you can use them to your benefit. But they accumulate over the growing season. So in a particular climate, you could say this climate has X number of growing degree days, which is greater than in a climate that is cooler or has shorter days. And once you see what's happening in your garden and you've kind of understood when those days, when that calculation of warmth and daylight hours combines, then you'll be able to start planting or start transplanting more effectively. Yeah. Is that good? Do you want to add to that? I am not a scientist on this.
Well,
I
did a little bit of a dive today because I have, I teach gardening to kids in school, and
I'm not hearing Mark.
Mark's audio dropped out.
Yeah, am I you hear me now?
I hear you now. Boy, we are just we're rolling today, aren't we?
I know. I spent about an hour today looking at various websites because this is a concept I've heard of, and you explained it very clearly, but it's still there's still a lot of complexity to it. And I mean, one thing you said in your book is like, I hope soon somebody puts some kind of a tool together to help people calculate this stuff. And what I found today after about an hour of internet searches, nobody still has. It's so hard to find a place. But I mean, one of the things is the terminology is confusing. Like I tend to think of it as coins or units. that if, it's not about days actually, because in one day you can get a couple of hundred growing degree days. So it's like, it's not really about or at least tens of units. So if they said growing degree units, it might be clearer. But there's a definite number of these units. Like if you get to, I think I looked up sweet corn's like 3,200 growing degree days, but let's just call them units, or coins or nuggets of heat you have to give to this crop. And if you can calculate that, you can know exactly when the corn is going to be ready, or exactly any other stage in its development. So it's the same works for pests too. You can know almost, to the day, to the hour, when a particular hatch is going to happen of a pest, if you can calculate these growing degree days. So it's a very useful concept, but it's very challenging to find a coherently summarized website. So I hope somebody does this for vegetable gardeners soon, because it seems like it's so useful.
Yeah. I want to go back just to a couple more points, and I try to describe it in the way that I can understand it, which is non-technical. Gardeners can sometimes get really hung up on a technical scientific process or something that that is not easily translatable to their lived experience, their day-to-day growing in the garden. And so I hesitate to try to sort of use the terminology of science to talk gardening. But there's one thing about growing degree days that I found in my own research for Cool Season Gardener, and that was, if I add season extension into the mix of how much warmth I'm giving the plants, how much protection I'm giving them, and season extension protection is like putting a cloche or a cold frame over your garden bed, right? So if I can artificially raise the soil temperature during the day, and I can keep the soil temperature warmer at night, I can boost the growing degree days for the plants that are in that cloche. Yeah. So almost in early spring, I could almost double them. So you might have, instead of 200 units in a day getting to that plant, you've got 400. So you can grow the plants, get them growing a lot faster in cooler days by warming up your soil. And it's as easy as buying 2 soil thermometers. These are little $10, sticks with a little thermometer you put in the ground, and then you can go out there every day. This is a great thing, a little scientific experiment to learn about in your garden. Just go out there every day, look at the soil temperature first thing in the morning and then late in the afternoon, and write them down. And then after a couple of weeks, you'll see a trend. The soil temperature doesn't change that much every day, especially in the cool seasons. But you'll see the trend. And if you put one soil thermometer inside your cloche or your cold frame, and the other one in the garden bed right next to it, you will clearly see what's happening in your garden. The bed in the cold frame will dry out faster, it'll warm up faster, and it'll stay warmer at night. And especially if you have it if you're using a raised bed, for instance, that is made of stone, because like stone blocks or pavers or blocks, because they will gather the heat from the sun during the day, and then they'll radiate it back into the soil at night, and that will keep it warmer. So there's a little citizen science you can do there, and you don't really have to know the technical calculation of it. You just have to look at a thermometer.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, as we're moving along today, again, I'm going to get through. Got one more question from someone else we'll get to, but I want to ask real quick. the book was written a little while back ago, and as I'm reading through, I was like, it made me feel kind of nostalgic in a way of this time of, you know, when
Me
because
too.
you wrote it in the sense of like, what it was like back in the time you wrote it, as far as climate is concerned. That things have changed a lot, and they seem to be kind of changing more and more each and every year since then. Is there anything really from the information on the book that you would revisit today a little bit differently because of the sort of changes in the climate since you wrote the book?
Well, yeah, I think you have to adjust the planting dates, and uh, yeah, for
Which
a
comes
lot
back,
of crops, we'll have to adjust the planting dates. It will change. Uh, it'll keep changing. What we're finding in a lot of parts of the country is the summers are warmer and they're also wetter. And
Mm,
these, all of this horrific flooding. And if you're in an area where you had to deal with these heavy rains and horrific flooding, my heart goes out to
yeah,
you. Um, it,
yeah,
that all of that kind of stuff is really going to change the way we garden. If you have to deal with heavy rains in the summer, maybe you're going to be planting in higher and higher beds, raised
mm,
beds that are really protected from that. And maybe you're going to have to use
mm,
the cloche in the summer to keep those heavy rains from, drenching your garden and leaching out all the nutrients out of your soil. Yeah, there's just so many
yeah,
angles you could take on that. It's
yeah.
it's tough. It's really tough.
It really
yeah,
is. It's a whole nother book, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Well, and we're gonna address some of that in the garden guide for sure.
yeah. There's so much change going on at such a rapid pace. It's almost hard to. You're gonna have to keep reissuing these things over.
Yeah, but humans are innovative. They're resilient. I'm optimistic, that we will
Mhm.
find a way. I hate that we have to do it. I wish that it were different, but being realistic, I feel like we just have to find the way forward, working with what we have, and
Mm,
um, and try not to make it any worse.
Yeah.
So
Really no choice on that level, huh? And really, when you think about
not so
it
much.
too, it's the food gardeners, the food growers, and those folks who are really gonna have to lead the way in a changing
mm,
world like that too, right? Because, food's one of our most important things next to water, right? So these are huge issues, and it's going to be a lot of the sort of things that we, I guess, discover and learn through our gardens and our backyards and front yards and wherever we're growing and stuff over these changing periods that, are the lessons that are going to help guide the future through this stuff.
Well, and the
Right on,
farmers,
right on. You have any? Sorry.
really, farming is where we will learn a lot, because uh, I mentioned regenerative agriculture earlier. Um, this is a set of techniques that forward-looking farmers are
mm,
using to try to create a more resilient ecosystem, and that will be able to um, be more flexible in a uncertain weather times. And farmers, this is a job that where you have to be a scientist and a whole bunch of other um,
Mhm.
specialties, along with being a good business person, in order to make that
Right.
productive and work for you. And I have a lot of respect for what farmers do and for us, and we can look to their techniques as gardeners to apply in a
Yeah.
small way.
Yeah. How about for you, Mark? You got any last questions there you want to
uh,
toss in real quick before we get moving on and letting Bill
yeah,
go
one
here
final
today?
question. I think, and maybe your earlier slide pointed to this a little bit. At least in the Northwest, I would say, winter gardeners, we suffer from the brassica dilemma in a lot of ways, because in terms of obviously people, I think I've heard of crop rotation and the idea that you move around the large families of crops to avoid disease buildup and such. But with the winter gardening, we're leaning so heavy on the brassicas. I mean, just think of it: cabbage, cauliflower, any kind of overwintering broccoli, the kales, the kohlrabis, the leafy greens, the mustards. It's all, so many of our choices and so many of our wonderful choices are brassicas. But tell us how you help to break that up. What other crops are you using? And, kind of how do we overcome the brassica dilemma as winter gardeners?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a great question. Thank you. And that picture that you just showed, that was one of my pictures of a broccoli in winter. And winter crops, this is a little bit of an aside, but when I see that picture, I just think, oh man, so sweet.
Yeah.
And, maybe you don't think of vegetables as being sweet, but what happens in winter when frost hits a fully mature crop, either a root crop like a carrot or a broccoli head like that, the plant, in its defense over the frost that is hitting it, and the cold that is hitting it, converts the starches at a cellular level in the plant into sugars as a way to keep the cells from being frozen from the outside in. So their struggle is our benefit, because then when we pull that carrot out of the ground, it's got a higher sugar content. If you grow a lot of winter vegetables, you can really notice that if we've had some frost and you've been able to protect those and keep them alive through the frost, you just have this great benefit. So to answer your question, I think of the three types of crops that I grow in the winter a lot. Brassicas certainly are one, and then root crops are another, and then overwintering things like alliums, like garlic and shallots, especially. I guess there's four categories, and then there would be cover crops. So if you have enough space to be able to do this, if you can grow your brassicas, say perhaps in a bed that had summer salad greens, or something that has been fallow for a little bit by the time you put in your fall and winter brassicas, then the next year when you pull those brassicas out, you might, for the summer, you might put in a short season flowering cover crop, like let's say buckwheat. Buckwheat is a great summer cover crop, and the pollinators love it. It's not a heavy feeder on the soil, so you kind of let the soil rest. And then in the fall, you pull up that buckwheat, you save the seed for next year, and throw it into your compost pile. And then in the fall, you might plant your garlic in that bed. And then the garlic comes out next June. It's a very long season plant if you plant it in October. And then next June, now you have a bed that has had brassicas in it, and then it's had garlic in it. Well, how about trying the carrots and the beets and in that bed for that fall and winter? You can do continual sowing so that you get it over a long season, and do a little bit, like Thomas Jefferson once said, sow a thimbleful of lettuce every Monday. That'd be a lot of. That's a lot of lettuce.
Yeah,
but
it would be really, actually.
But what about a little handful of carrots every 2 weeks? A short bed that's maybe a foot long, and do a foot of your bed every 2 weeks over the course of 6 to 8 weeks. You'll have those all winter. And then you start the cycle over again. Just thinking about, not only a crop rotation for the pest and disease kind of problems that would occur, like clubroot on the brassicas or something like that, or the cabbage moth or the carrot rust fly, or these pests and diseases that we get. But also think about how much fertility you can keep in the soil by planting crops that have a different fertilizer need. Some are heavy feeders, some are light feeders, and some feed in a different root zone than others. So you can use less fertilizer, wash less of it through the soil into the waterways over the winter, and grow by growing different things. Grow a variety that will keep the bed fertile longer through the season, through the year. Because if you do grow year round, you have to think about the fact that your summer crops have just depleted the soil of the nutrients in the soil. So you might be doing soil tests a little more often. You might be fertilizing in particular types of fertilizer, say a high nitrogen fertilizer, more than you would need to unless you let the soil rest and grow some cover crops in between. So, I mean, there are so many different aspects to this. That's why I wrote the book, to try to get them all in.
That's right.
That
That's why
becomes
you
the
wrote the
elegant
book.
dance
That's
and
right.
the artistry of gardening, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's and if it fails, hey, the great thing about vegetable gardening is that every season is a new opportunity, and you just learn from it, and you just try again, and eat the failures.
That's right.
You know,
That's right. Eat the failures. Right on.
if you can,
Excellent. So
Yeah.
one last question coming from the audience. Our good friend David brought in a lot of great questions. David, thank you so much. We're gonna do one more of your great questions here to finish up our interview. Bill, what lessons from your book do you personally still have to remind yourself of each season? How about that?
Well, yeah, that is a great question.
Anything you go back to your book, anything you go back to out of what you learned and researched to put the book together, all that sort of stuff, anything you got to really remind yourself of each season?
Yeah, and this goes back to that Maritime Northwest Garden Guide as well. A gardening book is an almanac for you. We have in the garden guide, we have an actual month by month almanac that says plant these things now, harvest these things now, and I have a quite an extensive chart in my book about the various crops and when to start them from seed, when to transplant them. And yeah, I mean, I don't grow parsnips every year. I don't start onions from seed every year. So I will go back to that chart and I'll just be like, oh, that's right. That's when I should start that, because that chart is the result of a lot of research as well as my own experience.
Yeah.
And if you haven't done it in a few years on a crop that you want to try again, everybody needs that reminder. So yeah, that's the main thing that I use my own book for these days. Is a reminder of when to start stuff.
That's great. It's a great
That's a great
chart,
question.
all that sort of stuff. Yeah, definitely. Thanks, David. Thanks everybody for the questions there too. I got another question that came in. Mark and I'll answer that one here probably in just a moment here as well. But Bill, I did want to let you get going. You got something important to get going and doing, and you really did hang out with us and give us some great information. This book is really awesome. I recommend everybody go get a copy of Cool Season Gardener. I believe we got a link down below for everybody. I'm sure that Jay has probably dropped a link for everybody in the chat as well too, but a really great book, Cool Season Gardener. Oh, I got my
I got mine too. Should I hold mine?
You can see what Bill looked like about 20 years ago.
Mine's all posted up.
Yeah, right. Hey, there's
there you go. That's
Can
a nice
I,
picture there.
yep. Can I also just say, I love
Absolutely.
being here. It's fun to talk about this stuff. I talk about this stuff regularly. And I have on my website, billthorness.com, I have a page of coming events and when I'm going to be giving talks and stuff. And the next talk I'm giving is actually next Saturday, the 26th, at the Bellevue Botanical Garden. So if you're in the Seattle area, or if you want to come to
Ooh.
Seattle for a vacation in the
Yeah.
summer,
Yeah, there you
millions
go.
are doing so. You could come, and we're giving a talk. I'm giving a talk on saving seeds. A lot of techniques on saving
Yeah,
seeds, how to save your own seed, close the loop on your gardening, level up a little bit more to more techniques for your gardening practices. That's 10 a.m. on Saturday, 7/26. There's a link on my website for that. You can register, and it's a small fee, and you'll take home seeds to plant. And you can plant some of them
No
now,
doubt.
like the radish, the black Spanish radish, a wonderful heirloom
Ooh, that
vegetable,
Jersey
and I
oak,
will
that
be
is really
giving
great.
out that seed. I got a lot of them.
Wonderful. That sounds great. Also, link in the
Yeah.
description too for Bill's website as well too. Go check all of that sort of stuff out as well. And yeah, again, we'll have to have you back on, talk more about some of this stuff, maybe talk some other stuff on gardening for sure. Bill, is a great
Hey,
conversation,
anytime.
and like I said, it's always awesome of you to take your time, especially on this day that you got something to do and fit us in to talk about this really great book. So really appreciate that. And yeah, we'll look forward definitely at some point to having you back with us for sure.
Sure, anytime.
Thanks, Bill. I'm
Had
sure
a lot of fun.
if we don't
Thank
cross
you, guys.
paths soon, we'll certainly do it at the Northwest Flower and Garden Show in February. So definitely see you then.
Yeah, I'll probably
yeah,
be there.
definitely.
Yep.
Yeah,
I love that
Thank
one.
you.
We'll be storming the show for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do a live stream from the show.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Let's do that.
We'll definitely catch you for sure. Definitely. Awesome, Bill. Thanks again
All right.
so much.
Thanks for being with us.
Thanks.
Everybody, yep.
Take
We'll
care.
be right back, everybody, here with a little In the Garden, everybody. Be right back.
Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Oh no.
We're back.
There's something wrong. We're back. I guess we're back. Oh, let me get this. No, again too. There's something that didn't play my. It didn't play my break like it was supposed to.
It's
Everything's
just
not working like
that
it's
kind of a
supposed
day, isn't it?
to. It really is. It
Just
really
that kind
is.
of a day.
It's going really well. Surprisingly, though, too. Great conversation with Bill there. I
Great
hope everybody
conversation.
heard that well, other than again to my video glitching and stuff as well throughout that. So again, great conversation, great book as well too. I really loved reading this book, and you will too. So definitely, like I said, catch that link down below in the description and get yourself a copy of Cool Season Gardener by Bill Thorness.
You know, this
And
is really
yeah,
a
we'll have
book.
to have him back and have another great conversation with him sometime.
Well, I think I've heard him give a talk on the perennial vegetables, and I definitely think we should get him back for that, because that is a whole other area of gardening that is just fascinating. And again, it's like the cool season gardening in that it's like a little bit less work, right? If you can nurture these heirloom perennial vegetables, they just produce for you year after year. Same thing with the cool season gardening. You put in a little work, and then the easiest part is the winter when you're just harvesting, right? He's trying to save us. He's cutting us some slack as gardeners here and trying to save us some work and some effort, which is great.
Yeah, that's for sure. Awesome. And again, too, though, as I was kind of mentioning with my question, though, too, it really is an interesting kind of look, though, too, because the information still really applies even today and all
Totally
of that.
relevant.
But again, like I was saying, though, is that it was nostalgic in a way as he talks about like the Northwest and our summers and all this sort of stuff. And then you go, wait a minute, it's a little bit different today. We're under hotter summers, more heat pressure, all of this sort of stuff and that sort of stuff. So I thought that was kind of an interesting perspective, because again, it really does kind of affect our start to what will be our cool season gardening, right? This is when we're
Yeah.
thinking about it, where this is when we want to start getting some seeds started, or even he was even saying there was some that maybe we should have even already gotten started too, you know. But how are again too, how are we really handling these heat domes and these all of whatever this new terminology that keeps coming
Yeah.
at us, you know, or these new things that we're experiencing, right?
Yeah, we're all going to have to adapt. I'm just thinking of different techniques. Like I've never personally done this, but I know that for certain crops, under very harsh light conditions, the sun, midsummer plantings, you can dip them in a kind of a clay solution, and the clay reflects light off the leaves, so you don't get this harsh leaf burn. Or using something like the Rime or the spun polyester
Mm-hmm.
fibers there to bounce some of the light off. So again, it's like it's adaptation. It's trying to see what we can do to lower temperatures, just like we try to raise the temperatures by a few degrees in the winter. Sometimes in the summer, we might be needing to
Yeah.
lower temperatures by a few degrees to let these crops get established
Yeah.
so that they can actually make it into the winter, So it's just a new set of challenges,
Yeah.
new world, new set of challenges.
Yeah, and then kind of like what we were ending with though too is you know, that perspective of like the future really for everybody is some sort of reliance on folks who grow food to figure out
Yeah.
how to work through and get through these things. That is a present challenge to what we're going to be dealing with as we move even to maybe more hotter, who knows where it goes, right?
Well, and the trick is, I think, really, it was brought up and with the sense of compassion for places that are suffering, but there's extension and change of the seasons, which is one thing. If you just knew your summers were going to get
Hmm.
hotter and longer, we can sort of plan for that. But it's these random events that happen, these huge rainfalls, these fires that come in that you don't know. Is like in any given
Hmm.
season, am I going to get flooded? Am I going to get coughed,
Yep.
out that I can't even get out into outside without a mask on or something?
Right.
So you just don't know what's
Yeah,
coming, in other
speaking of that,
words.
we got our first smoke too this year.
Okay, so there
I
you go,
just
right?
walked out the other day and smelt smoke in our valley for the first time this summer. Here we got our
Oh,
fingers crossed and we're like, oh no, let's hope we can get through a summer without having the smoke. And no, the last few days, some fire down here. I think it's coming from the south right now, but I heard of one up towards the northeast a little bit, and who knows, anywhere around outside of our valley, it'll pull in anything and just fill up our valley full of smoke. And like I said, it's just, yeah, again, too, all of these challenges and things, and who knows where it's going.
who knows where it's going? I mean, we can only hope that wisdom will prevail among the leadership, because it doesn't seem to be going that way. People don't seem to be, as gardeners, we're trying our best. We're in the trenches. We're trying to make these positive changes, but we really need the systemic action, right? We need the
Yeah,
corporations. We need the industrial forces that be. We need the
this is the
political
thing
forces
that
that be.
really, and I don't, yeah, yeah, and again, too, and that's the thing, I don't want to get too deep into the level of those sort of issues, but really, you go back to when we really built things and we really did stuff. You know what I mean? It was this understanding that collectively we can do some really amazing things. Look at what we were able to mobilize for World War II, if you want to put that into perspective, or put together as far as other highway program that we did in the 50s and stuff to, put stretches of highways across this, country, and things that just big, huge, monumental projects are done by large groups of people who come together to do them. You know what I mean? So it gets back down to these things that we have to work together. We have to get and do things. The challenges we face with climate are going to take large scale human
Mm.
global efforts, large scale human global efforts that are going to have to take place for us to be able to do any sort of mitigation on what we're going to do. It's either that, or I don't know. I mean, we get worried about, what do they call that? Those tipping points, or you know what I mean? That we've already kind of gone over that. that that line or whatever that you can't really go back from, and nature's got to
Yeah.
kind of cycle itself through it, you know what I mean? And now we're at nature's mercy through its cycle of getting back, but yet where are we in how it would say, and literally, again, too, that's like a global effort. We'd have to shut things down to let nature do what it would do on its own. Other than that, we're still doing things. So what is it going to do in its recovery effort? Is there a recovery effort nature would undertake? You know what I mean? Big, huge, large scale questions we need to be asking about our future. I don't think people really, really understand it too much, but I think it's getting easier to, summer by summer, storm season by storm season. The each time we're looking at things that are just at a level we've never seen before. I think people really have to get together and start going, wait a minute,
Yeah, it's like
let's do
how many
something.
times
But
do we need
anyways,
to get pounded
that's my
before we start
soapbox.
to
I'm
think
sorry.
about an alternative? It's like, maybe the way we're doing it isn't working. Oh,
Yeah.
humans. What I always say is we're really good at solving the small stuff. Like if you give me a little gadget or a widget and say, make this better, I'm going to make it 100% better for you, no problem. But you give me a big problem like managing the global ecosystem and say, make this better. I'm like, no, I don't know. Maybe we'll go the other direction. Maybe we'll make it worse.
Yeah, I know. And seeing again too, like the only thing I can think of is just shutting things off. You know what I mean? We got to shut things off, I mean,
Well, we
and
saw
I'm
that during
sorry
the
to
tip.
say, but here we are enjoying a fun technological future in dabbling with AI. I'm looking in things like that, what we can do for the channel and this sort of stuff. But then think of this stuff. All people, I don't think, really understand what we're doing right now as we speak, as far as the energy consumption. I mean,
Mm,
we're like just say 5, 10 years ago, we've like tripled or quadrupled or even more so our actual energy consumption. And it's not the general public. And this is what we all need to understand. It's not us, our regular homeowners, who are pulling in all this energy. It's not the regular people trying to work a job or the regular company trying to produce or do certain things like what they do and what we were used to in our normal lives. It's not that anymore. It's these corporations that are doing things with like those Bitcoin miners, the AI
yeah.
developers, these sort of things that have these servers that require so much energy because they have to keep them cool. They heat up because they're pulling and running so much information and running so hot that we're dumping tons of energy that they are using to keep all that stuff cool. And that's another, I mean, that's exacerbating an issue we were already starting to deal with 5, 10 years ago, right? So what are we doing? How are we allowing nature to recover if there's ever to be a recovery, right?
Yeah. I mean, gardeners, in a lot of ways, we hold the key because to a certain degree, we understand the simpler pleasures of nature, right? We know that spending time outside is going to be more satisfying most of the time than in front of our screens. So we need to just keep doing what we're doing and then advocating, the as we've made the turn toward nature. We know that that's satisfying. We know that has enough to keep our attention and meet our needs, and then we just need to keep pulling more people with us.
Yeah, exactly. Right here. Oh, just one of these things, Dusty's saying right here too, and I agree with this to a certain level. I also think there are a lot of things that we're not aware of or told about, and I agree with that to a certain level. But I also want to emphasize that there is so much that we do know about that's right there. It's right in front
Mhm.
of us, and though if we can work to solve just some of that stuff right there, could be huge. Just like I said, one of the big things that, like I said, energy consumption right now and how what we're doing with this sort of stuff. I mean, all this sort of great technology stuff is awesome, but what it has to do and affects our environment, how we're pulling that energy, where we're getting it from, all that sort of stuff, these questions need to be figured out, and we know about that stuff right now. We do know that this is going on. I mean, I just reflect to a story where a whole town, I think it was in Washington somewhere, maybe up there, or somewhere the whole town's power basically went blacked out, right? And they got a lot of their power from like a local dam source or something like that, right? Well, what they found that put out the whole power grid or the whole thing was like this kid's servers in his basement as he went and bought and set up a whole bit mining scenario in his own basement, and the
Wow.
amount of power that it required for him, just this kid who set up his own technology in his own home, right? Mind you, of some big multi-billion-dollar corporations that are setting up these massive servers. We're talking about warehouse-sized servers that have to be cooled down, right? This kid put down a whole energy grid with the amount of energy he needed to do that sort of stuff. And that's,
Wow.
we've never needed that type of energy as humans and people, even in the world we lived in 5-10 years ago. That's huge. That's huge. If we can address that we know about and figure something out there, that could have huge implications in what we do moving forward in the future. And again, I'm on a soapbox again. This is our book club. Let's move on here. We got things to
We
do
got another
today.
book to talk about.
We got another book to talk about. I just want to say one more time, though, everybody, go and check out the links below for Cool Season Gardener. And thanks once again to Bill Thorness for joining us today on our book club. A little bit of a book club today for everybody who's joined with us. We jumped, or maybe even joined in a little bit later or anything, as we jumped right into the book club, got in right into our interview with Bill, and he's already heading off to a family event, a memorial event that he has to go to for one of his uncles and stuff like that. So we wanted to get him out real soon. So we're kind of finishing up the show right now with what we would normally do in the beginning of the show, and that is, or wait, no, let's not go there yet. I'm sorry. We got to announce our next book. Is what
Yeah,
we got to
yeah.
do. That's our next thing we got to do. Let's keep this in order, right? So our next book is, and seeing how you got it here live before I put up the banner, go ahead there and let's reveal the book. It is The Triumph of Seeds by Thor Hansen.
Yeah,
The
this
Triumph
looks
of Seeds by Thor
amazing.
Hansen is going to be our next monthly gardening book club for the month of August. And
Yeah.
let's see here. That's going to be August. I believe that's is that the 17th again?
That
Right? No, the
sounds right.
17th.
Let me,
Yes.
yeah,
17th of
okay.
August. Third
Nice.
Sunday of the month. 17th of August, we'll have on with us Thor Hansen talking about The Triumph of Seeds. This is another great book that came off of your list there, Mark. So looking forward to checking this book out and reading it here for our next book club. So right on, right
Yeah, this,
on.
it's, as gardeners we're so in touch with seeds. Um, they're almost like our currency, right? Our
Yeah.
coin of the realm is the seed. And yet it's cool to take a step back. This guy's a conservation biologist, I think, and he kind of takes a step back and looks at them more as the evolution of it, and the specializations and the adaptations. So just really bringing that element of wonder. And I think it just really helps us as gardeners to take that step back from time to time. And just, we can get so used to just seeds in our hands that we really forget what a miracle these things are. So I think it's good. It's going to be
Mhm.
great for me, and hopefully for a great discussion with our guest author, Thor Hansen, just to really see how marvelous these things are.
Yeah, yeah. Right after, and I always say like our big number one focus in the garden is soil health, making sure soils are good. But I think number two, right after, is seeds,
Mm.
and and all of that. So it's really going to be great to kind of get into this book and dig into the stories of seeds, and all of this sort of stuff is just going to be really great, because it is. I mean, seeds shape everything. Seeds are, you know all the plants, all the food, all that sort of stuff. Got it. Their story all starts with the seed, you know uh, um, sprouting out of the ground, right?
Yeah, and it's this vulnerable little organism that can last, sometimes just under a season or 1,000 years if the conditions are proper. But it's this little being that's just waiting to grow, just waiting for the right conditions. So seeds are great. I mean, I love seeds, and it's
It really was too, though, is I think if I remember right too, is like I met you up on the rooftop thing, and we did that first video together and was like, hey, we need to do something else sometime. And I think the very next thing it was the when I came up to do the thing, we talked
oh
about
yeah, the
seeds
seed
and
catalogs and
we did the seeds and we put the seeds out and stuff. I think that was one of the next things we did right after that, is and again, because seeds are really when you get to that part of your gardening experience too, where you're really starting things from seeds, you're learning how to seed save yourself, all of that sort of stuff. You really start to understand the importance and the big role that seeds play in our gardens
well,
and in
kind of just
life in
like
general.
just like this was a very timely book for today, especially, in our region. All right, it's like Northwest gardeners,
Yeah.
wake up. It's time to do your cool season stuff. Same thing next time, seeds coming into August, we're really starting to keep eyes wide open, looking
Hmm.
at what vegetables might be producing seeds, what flowers in our gardens might be producing seeds. Are we prepared to collect them? Are we prepared to gather them? Are we prepared to just even notice them and
Yeah.
be ready to take advantage of that moment? So I think it's, even though,
Also, too, we're thinking too is it's also seed collection time from our previous cool season as well. I'm out there looking
yeah,
at, I've got some of my lettuces that I save each year and I let go to seed. So they're still forming their flower heads and
yep, yep,
right now. I've got some of the radishes or, they're still working on bolting before their flower heads start coming up and all of that though. So yeah, it's time from seed saving from that previous cool season. And of course a lot of our summer crops are fruits that are just producing seed for us as we're harvesting and that as well too. So yeah, it is a really good timely one.
yeah. It's the right time to be thinking about seeds. So I'm looking forward to it.
Right. Actually, here too, before we get, or actually, you know what? Let's put this in here, and I'm going to put this question in Wickershire real quick. And I think you put in another one I want to ask from earlier too. But let's go ahead and do this here, just for the sake of the show. Anyways, let's see if this works out right, and let's get started with a little in the garden with NBC. All right. So now we've officially moved on to the
Yeah, it
next
feels like we're
segment of
just
the
starting
show.
the show now. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
I
this is
know,
our
right?
first
We're just
segment.
getting going. That's excellent, excellent. So right on, all right on. So we are in the garden portion of the show now. Just a little different flip of our monthly gardening book club, but it's always great to talk to you a little bit about what's growing on in the garden here. I also do have again, as I just mentioned before we moved on into our new segment here, I do have a question or two as well for you. But
Yeah,
before we
let's
get to
start
that
with that.
question, real quick, just tell us how things are growing in the garden. How things
Well,
going?
just like what we talked about today, there's so much. I mean, there's all the summer crops going on. We got the tomatoes. I'm just still putting in a little corn actually that I sowed in 4-inch pots. So that's going in. I got a lot of corn going at school. I got popcorn. I got flour corn. I even got some sweet corn. A lot of greens up at the Noble Rod. We're just kind of cycling through, and they're I like to kind of bust the myth that some of these greens, like the lettuces and the tender mustard greens and stuff, are cool season crops. I've found that if you harvest them at a small stage and keep a lot of water on them, you can pretty much grow them all year long, all summer long. So
Yeah,
just producing some delicious tasting lettuce and other greens up at the Noble Rod, just taking them at a baby stage, not letting them go where they're going to get bitter or too mature.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
certain climates, you may need to use some shade cloth. I put in some lettuce starts. I did use a little shade cloth to protect them for 3 or 4 days, just to give them a nice little transition. So I think thinking about those
Yeah.
transitions can be important. Um, but then
What
just
would we
keep,
call those, Mark? I mean, if say they're, microgreens were just growing at to this certain little small stage, but what would it be if we're just growing it to maybe in between the full grown stage and a microgreen stage, right? Is there
you
a
could
name
call
we
it
have for maybe this?
maybe
These little,
adolescent vegetables. They're not quite
right,
baby, but they're not quite mature either. Maybe the adolescents.
right? That kind of made
Yeah.
me think. I was like, do we have a name for these little? They're like vegetable teenagers or whatever, right?
Yeah. Or, just switching it up, like maybe you're growing a full head of lettuce uh, starting in the spring and getting the full heads just at the earliest part of the summer. But then you go
Yeah.
to what's called cut and come, where you're just getting
Mhm.
literally
Yep.
the baby leaves that are 3 to 4 weeks old. And then you're making your salads out of that. So sometimes you got to
You're
mix
letting
up your
them go
strategy
again
a
though
little bit.
too, right?
Say what?
So then you're letting them grow again though too, right? So you're cutting them down and then you'll the cut and come again, right? Or
Well,
are you
that
just
is
cutting them down and that's pretty much done for?
Yeah, maybe I should call it cut and run, because I find sometimes the
Yeah.
secondary growth can be cool. Sometimes it's interesting, but sometimes it's bitter. Sometimes the cut
Mm,
combined with the heat can create a bunch of stress. So sometimes maybe it's better to say
right.
cut and run than cut and come. Uh,
There you
just get
go.
out of
We
there.
got a new saying then. Cut and run. I like that. That's perfect.
There was a Portland urban farmer that I met way back in the day, and his name was Steve Rogers. And one of his things that he said is seed is cheap. It's just like, if you don't have to, you could buy seed in bulk and just sow a lot of it. You can put it down, and you don't have to wait. You could just take one harvest from it
Yeah.
and on to the next thing. And I think that approach, I mean, that's the approach I use at the Noble Rot, the rooftop garden, and somewhat in my garden too. But this sense of like, you're just sowing stuff, you're letting it get just to that adolescent stage, you cut it and then you move on. You don't get pests build up that way. You don't get the
Hmm.
bitterness that's sometimes associated with the heat. So just get more seed, sow it more frequently. Like Bill was saying too, like a row or two of carrots a week, and you just keep marching along your bed that way.
Yeah.
You're not planting the whole bed all at once. It's like you're kind of having a
Yeah.
little bit of discipline.
Yeah. That's good.
So yeah,
That makes a lot of sense, and that's the way to go for sure, definitely.
I'm
All
going
right,
to
let's check out a few
copyright cut and
questions
run right
here.
now.
It's yours, man. You own that for sure. We got the
Cut and
video
run.
footage of this right here. That's right. We're gonna have to do a video and put that together. It's yours
I'm
for
writing that
sure.
down right now just so I don't forget it.
Wickershire
First,
Project asked a little bit earlier before we were finishing up there with Bill Thorness. What is better for a new gardener to start growing? So, for a new gardener to start growing, would you recommend growing heirlooms or hybrids?
okay. This could be unpopular, but I'm going to say hybrids. They grow, in general, hybrids grow a lot faster
Yeah,
and a lot bigger,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and much more reliably. I just have to say that. That's what they've been bred to do.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
They're
that's the
bred too. They're bred. They're
yeah,
not,
well,
yeah.
yeah,
So
they're
again, too, there's
designed,
not if we avoid the confusion that a lot of people get when we hear hybrid, there's a lot of like it creates, I think, almost a negative connotation, which I don't think it really should in a sense. And I
yeah.
agree with you completely about that. I would say the same thing.
Yeah, there's so many things. And sometimes, like, even though I'm a huge fan of heirlooms, and I grow a lot of heirlooms, and I, save a lot of seed, the, the main difference, of course, is that when you save seed from a hybrid, you are not going to get the same
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
The genetics are going to resort back out, and you're going to get something very different. So you're kind of at the mercy of the seed company a little bit. Still, they are providing you a service. They have created these varieties that bring together certain traits that make for a very exceptional vegetable usually. And almost every hybrid that I've tried it lives up to that promise in some way. uh, you sacrifice certain things. There's a lot of heirloom tomatoes that cannot be matched by a hybrid. There's no way the flavor is
Yeah.
ever going to be,
Yeah.
beaten. So the heirlooms win in certain categories. But I think if you're just starting off, start with the hybrids and then explore from there out into the heirlooms. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Would you agree with
again
that?
too, absolutely, and that would I would think I would say the same exact thing, because we're just trying to create successes and get people who are new to gardening to see, things, work out in a way, and if it can be just a nudge, just a little bit more in that direction by growing a hybrid versus, an heirloom, I would definitely agree and say that that's the way to go. But we love heirlooms and there's so many great stories and awesome varieties and things like that. And you're definitely right. As you get better at growing things and doing that, drop in and try new things in each of your new seasons to follow and try some of those heirloom varieties because that's where you get the fun of gardening though too, right? Is in the variety. And you're going to
Oh, yeah.
find the variety is really amazing through all these great heirlooms that are out there. But yeah, I agree with you
I mean,
completely.
one thing you'll see, like
Oh,
I grow some, talk about winter gardening, Brussels sprouts. Like I grow a mix of hybrids and non-hybrids. There's one that's been around since the 1890s called Long Island Improved. That's a very good, reliable Brussels sprout, open pollinated. The hybrids are very expensive. So, for example, I'll buy
yeah.
a seed packet of a hybrid Brussels sprout, and you get about 10 seeds for $5. I mean, it's like sometimes it's like
Hmm.
eye-poppingly expensive. So,
Yeah.
that has to be factored in too. The open pollinated, I mean, you can just generate huge amounts of seeds, and if you have to buy it, if you're not saving it yourself and you buy it,
Hmm.
it's often much more reasonably priced. So there's trade-offs
Yeah,
for everything.
I would definitely say, I agree to that level. Like you said, if this is starting off, jumping off point, you're a new gardener, roll with a couple of hybrids, get, that sort of thing. So you can get those successes, you can get some that they're going to grow really well and that sort of thing. But then you want to kind of really move into, of course, growing from, growing heirlooms and other varieties, saving seed, all these other next steps that we do. We want to move right into some of those things. And that's really where the fun of gardening really comes in, though, too. So, so again, to more so for the sense of just getting started, would you do either or? But I would be more inclined to go with a variety and finding heirlooms that I really enjoy as I become more of an experienced gardener.
Yep, agreed. There's a lot more richness there, and
Yep.
every breeding thing is, and I hope we do a book on breeding at some point because it's so much.
Yeah.
Every vegetable variety is or cultivated variety is reflects a set of choices and reflects somebody's values, right? The breeder's value,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
those may or may not be your values. So you really have to try things out and see what you're getting here.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Next question. Thanks for the great questions, Wickershire.
Yeah,
It's
this is
great to see
awesome.
you in the chat, and it's great these awesome questions that you got here. Mark, can you think of any seeds that do not get refrigerated besides tropical seeds? And would you suggest cold storage for seeds?
Well, to answer the second question first, absolutely cold storage. Your seeds
Cool.
are going to last a lot longer. Heat and moisture are what is needed to sprout a seed. So go
Yeah.
in the reverse if you don't want them to sprout or lose vigor.
Right.
That is the other thing that seeds. So, and I don't know if this is going to be covered in the book in terms of the biology of seeds, but seeds, of course, are living, respiring beings. So they have a source of food in the endosperm, and they are slowly consuming that food. They're slowly, they're having some small chemical reactions that slowly consume that food, and over time, seeds can, it's not like they're necessarily 100% good or 100% bad. They become weakened and become less viable, such that the plants that grow from them might not be as strong. So you want fresh seeds, you want seed that is stored under cold and dry conditions, or at least cool and dry conditions. And that is what's going to give you the best plants. I've done this a million times with lettuce. Like I'll buy a pack of lettuce seeds at the store or order it, and then use a year-old pack of lettuce seeds. Do that as an experiment, because you will see not only is the number of seeds that shoot up instructive, the new lettuce will germinate much better, but the plants will be healthier, stronger, and grow faster as a result as well. So it's not just like a number of germination, like, oh, I got 3 seeds out of 10 to germinate versus I got 9 seeds out of 10. The healthier, better stored seeds, or the fresher they are, will shoot up as plants, stronger plants, because they have better food reserves. So, I don't know if any seeds benefit from not being refrigerated. I don't know if that would hurt any particular seeds, but as far as I know, I mean, there's a,
Yeah.
we
Well, what
did
is
this.
these, we're not in tropical zones or anything there. He mentions tropical. And when I'm thinking like, seeds really, and why refrigeration or freezing or those sort of things are beneficial, is because I think of the natural seed bank.
Yeah.
The natural seed bank itself, for us here, maybe a little bit more north, it gets cold. Those seeds are stored in the soil. It gets cold, it freezes. That's where they're stored. And then when things warm back up, like you said, the temperature and all those sort of things, tell it, hey, it's time to get going and all that sort of stuff. So that's why you think, you get it in your fridge, your freezer, those sort of things. This is where it's going to just kind of stay in that stasis, right? But in a colder region of the world, right, or a warmer region, a tropics, where you're not seeing really frosts and things like that. So what is the natural seed bank for seeds of those regions, right?
Yeah. Uh, well, one thing that I know from one of our previous guests, Jennifer Jewell, from
Yeah,
talking about her book about seeds, discussed the global seed bank in Svalbard, Norway, and basically every country around the world has sent their seeds there. So I think that's probably our
yeah,
answer. That cold
yeah,
conditions favor the longevity of seeds, no matter where they come from. At least all our food crop seeds like cold storage,
yeah,
even if they don't grow in a cold area.
yeah. So
It
there you
just
go.
slows
That's and
down.
it makes
It slows down respiration. It slows down chemical processes and makes those things live longer.
yeah, excellent, excellent.
Here's another pointer.
Yeah,
If let's say you put your seeds in a freezer in a glass jar, uh, when you take the seeds out of the freezer, you've done this with it. Let's say you're just icing a glass to pour a cold beer into a glass, and you put the glass in the freezer. What happens when you take the glass out of the freezer? You get water on the side of it, right? It starts to immediately get water, and it may frost over. It may actually freeze the water, so the glass looks frosty. So the water vapor that's in the air immediately starts to slow down and cling to that cold glass, and clings to that, condenses. The same thing happens with our seeds. So if you take seeds out of the freezer and you open the jar or the container right away, moisture will cling onto every single seed. And then when you put them away again, you've now put cold, moist seeds away, which is again bad for seed saving. So when you pull them out of the freezer, let that jar or plastic bag or whatever you've got them in come to room temperature first, then open it, take the seeds out that you want to sow, then put them back in. And, like we were talking with Eric Lahoulier there about tomatoes, the tomato man. And he said he's had, and I can back this up. This year I grew tomatoes that were 12 years old, seed that I saved 12 years ago. So some of this stuff can last quite a long time, but you have to care for it properly.
yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a good care, that sort of thing. And there's some seeds. And again, we've heard stories of like, I'm growing a bean that's called 1400-year-old cave bean,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? So I mean, there's seed out there that, in the right type of conditions in the back of a cave somewhere and maybe a little jar or something like that, that just got stored away and locked away and can survive and do all that. But in general, most seed is going to need to be regenerated in a sense, and have to be grown out and brought back to seed so you can get new fresh seed to keep those genetics going and that sort of thing too. So yeah, and some too, like why I like growing my lettuce and make sure I grow my lettuce to seed every year. The couple of varieties I like out there is because it grows better if I'm using fresh seed from year to year.
Yeah. Well, something we were talking with Bill about just before the show started is the, and I'm interested to see if anybody does this who's listening right now or watching. Just let the soil store your seeds. Like, in other words, you're
Mhm.
growing certain things. Like, I can think of two things. Let me just
Yep.
talk about one of them. This holy basil, which is a wonderful, I call it blueberry bubblegum basil. It really just has this fruity fragrance. It comes up at the Noble Rot on its own every year, right around the beginning of July. So, whatever the soil temperature conditions it likes, it happens about
Yeah.
July. It comes up on its own. I don't try to scatter the seed around, but it just must produce a prolific amount of seed. It is
Mhm.
self-maintaining. I don't do anything to get holy basil at Noble Rot. It just grows, and then the next year, it has seeded itself enough to just come back. So it's a self-sustaining crop. I do nothing. All I need to do is harvest it. So that's kind
Yeah.
of marvelous. The soil is just storing the seeds for me over the winter, and it comes up
Yeah.
on its own. So that's as easy as
Yeah,
it
in a
gets.
way, in a way, we're all familiar with this as volunteers, basically. We're just purposefully making and allowing that to happen, right? Is
Yeah.
and I do that with a couple of things in my garden. One of them is this really great cherry tomato I really like, and all I do is let some of the big fat ones stay on the plant and just kind of fall off and
Yeah.
just let it do its thing.
Yeah.
And then next year it just comes back, does its thing, comes up every single year, and they seem really good and really strong and nicer and nicer for years. I keep doing it.
See, that's awesome. Even with a tomato, like the small fruited tomatoes, you can do that with. Everyone says, "Oh, you got to start your tomatoes in March." Well, I mean, yeah, if you want a big giant one, you got to start it inside or plant it from a start. But if you want a tiny tomato, you could just let that thing start on its own, and then, like you said, you're going to get your tomatoes just with no effort.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Right
awesome,
on. Here, I
actually.
got another question about seeds. It really is. It really is. It's a great way. And again, too, it's just encouraging those little volunteer things that you see each and every year. But now you're
Yep.
just taking certain ones will do well and encouraging them and allowing them to go through that process. And again, too, it's they always seem to be the better ones. And it comes back to this idea of like land race gardening. We had Joseph Lofthouse on a little while back ago
Mhm.
talking about how, as you grow things and allow it to grow generationally, and continue to reseed itself and do that, they grow stronger, better, and tastier each and every year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. Let's see here. This is a question. I don't know if it was a question for you specifically, but I thought it would make a good question because one of the things about seeds is they're also edible too. Plants are
Ah,
the thing we're trying to grow, but some seeds are really edible and really good. Which do you think is the most delicious to eat? Darth X was saying coconut is what he was thinking, but what kind of
I mean,
seeds do you think are really delicious to eat?
okay, I'm not gonna try to answer a most delicious because that's always a tough question. But I will give you two examples of a really interesting intermediary stage of seed that is available only to the home gardener that I just love. So again, up at Noble Rod, a little bit at my house, but more at Noble Rod, I grow fennel and cilantro. And
Mm,
cilantro is probably known by everybody. You know, if you eat the leaf, it's called cilantro. If you eat the hardened dried seed, it's coriander. That's the same plant.
yeah.
Uh, but midway on the journey, as it's flowering, you know, you let it go to flower, it attracts, it's great for beneficials. The flowers are also tasty. You can eat those. And then it will start to form its seeds. And before the seeds get hard and brown, and fennel's the same thing,
Yeah.
it will produce this soft green version of the seed that's juicy and tender. And you can harvest those, add them to salads and dishes, and they have so much flavor. They pop in your mouth. They're juicy. They have the exact flavor of the mature plant, but just easy to
Mm,
eat. I love the green fennel seeds like that too. I love that intermediate. They're not ready yet in terms of like a what where
yeah.
you normally harvest them. And you cannot, I've never found anybody selling those in any store, any farmer's market, only available to the home gardener. The intermediately ripe, the ripening, let's
Yeah.
just say, ripening
Yeah.
fennel and ripening cilantro seeds or coriander seeds. Those are awesome.
Yeah, yeah. One I think is really great. I don't think a lot of people think about too is one of my favorites is radishes, radish seed pods.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, yeah. So you're getting just those really underdeveloped seeds though, because you want the young seed pods, the soft
yeah,
seed, but they're delicious. It's got that little radish flavor, that little popping, kind of like a
yeah.
little fresh mini green bean almost with a radish flavor that you can have dancing around in your salad a little bit, right? I think those are great.
Yeah, I mean, as gardeners, again, we have this privilege of being able to play with different stages of the plant, and we don't
Hmm.
have to be fixed on just what you could get in the store, because the store version is one particular
Yeah,
thing. We can let plants go and see how they express themselves at different types, at different stages in their own journey, their life cycle. And as you say,
yeah.
oftentimes there's surprises there for us, like the radish seed pod.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right, one last question for you here. We got to get moving on today, Mark. We're having such a good time answering people's questions
Yeah,
and
this is
talking
kind of
here,
fun, but
but
yes.
it is kind of great. But real quick here, one last type of seed people don't really think of is, your tuber seeds and potatoes. The potatoes themselves are the seed. Darth X was asking about the two kind of cool season gardening. How well do fall potatoes do? Have you done any fall potatoes?
Well, potatoes, depending on when you plant them, they all have different maturity dates. So,
Yeah.
you could plant all your potatoes the same time. And if you did a smattering of varieties, you could, wind up harvesting different kinds of potatoes some people have them as early as July, August, September, October, November, on and on, in
And
terms of
all,
the
yeah, through.
when they mature. Uh, we always miss some potatoes, and it seems to be a truism that you're going to miss some potatoes in your garden as you're pulling them up. And
Hmm.
I
Every
have
year.
been eating some tremendous,
Volunteers, right?
yeah, the volunteers. I've been eating some great volunteers right now that I'm basically pulling up. I'm pulling them out as weeds because now they're in a bed where I'm growing corn. I don't want potatoes there, but they've already
Yeah.
formed tubers. I just served some last night, a delicious salad, like with tarragon and roasted potatoes. And it was all just basically like weed potatoes that I just pulled out. So they'll even overwinter in certain climates. I'm not sure if Bill Thorness as a North Dakota boy ever saw North Dakota overwintered potatoes. He probably didn't because the soil freezes so hard. But in
Yeah.
the Northwest, it doesn't get that cold, at least our part of the Northwest, Pacific Northwest. So the potatoes will survive in the ground, and then they just come up again when it's
Yep.
time, when they sense it's warm enough.
And like you said, I'm always leaving little ones because you can't get them all. They make
Yeah,
all
you
these
can't
little
get them all.
tiny ones. And even those little tiny ones will grow and form full whole new plants and grow all new potatoes the next year. It's amazing. And that's what my potato patch is this year. I didn't plant any seed potato. It's all volunteers. And I've got a bunch in there. So I'm looking forward to digging those up here soon. As the plants start wearing down in the summer here. So
Yeah,
we'll be digging
yeah.
them up here hopefully soon.
It's lots of
Right
fun.
on, Mark. Excellent. Still, kind of a funky day and a funky tech day as far as the show for all of us is concerned when it comes down to it, but we still pulled it off. We still
Yeah,
had
you
another
probably,
great book club.
when you started having some of those technical difficulties, you probably wanted to cut and run versus cut and come, right? You're like, I gotta
I
get
know,
out of here.
exactly. I know. I was like, I believe you. It's been so fun, and fun is not the right word actually, but I'll use that. It's been a lot of fun over the last several shows and trying to get things together. We even ran a test day last night, and that's where we ran in and figuring out our newest issue. Just seems like every time I figure one thing out, it's another thing that's right behind it. And there's just so many different little ins and outs for the way things are connected and stuff. And oh boy, it's just,
You need a roadie,
well,
Enoch. You need a roadie.
yeah, I know. Well,
Your
I
own, your
know,
own
right? The
specialist.
guy, the guitar tech or the laptop tech, the roadie, the person who can get in and fix it out or
Exactly.
swap it out real quick. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
God.
no doubt. Right on. Well, anyways, Mark, thanks again. We pulled it off. We still had a great show. We've talked about
It's a
a
great
really
show.
amazing book again, Cool Season Gardening,
Yeah. Thanks to
and
Bill.
you got
He's
the other book. Yeah,
a great
yeah, yeah.
guy.
And you got the other book there too. Next book's Triumph of Seeds with Thor Hansen, coming up 17th of August, third week of August for our
Can't wait.
August book selection. So it's gonna be another good show, and hopefully we'll have everything figured out by then and have another great show. And thanks again, bud. It's really awesome to have you here today. Always great to have a great book club discussion with you. I'm gonna let you go here for a minute and finish this up and let everybody wrap
Bye,
this whole
folks.
thing
Thanks a
down.
lot, Enoch. Always great to be with you. It's always a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to our next discussion. Always 1 month ends, and man, we're already looking forward to the next one. It's so great.
Yeah, it's like you say, I get Gardner Scott on with us regularly too, and I feel the same way about the book club. I'm like, didn't we just do it? Didn't we just do the book club? It's like
Yeah.
next thing you know, right around the corner, here we are again,
But you
bringing
look
another
back at
great
the
book and
bookshelf, it's
another
like,
great
oh,
author.
that bookshelf is growing as we've been talking about. You look at the shelf, and it's like, yeah, I guess we've been doing it because it's the spines of the books are getting longer and longer.
I know exactly. That's what I was telling you last time we were talking. I was like, I might have to start thinking about a whole new bookshelf coming up. We get here through another year of this. So, but again, too, it's just really amazing. We've been so fortunate here on our show to, get the guests we get overall. But this book club has just been fantastic. And it's been so
Mm,
awesome to be able to read and go through these really awesome books written by so many different gardeners, all types of books, too. We're not just how to garden type of books and seasonal stuff, but we're talking about seeds and telling stories books and all different types of things when it comes to gardening, growing, and plants and all of that here on the book club. So again, everybody, all of you out there too, who are follow along with us and all of our technical difficulties too. So thank all of you too as well for hanging out with us today and being part of our really fun book club. And again, Mark, we'll see you here in a minute, and I'm gonna
okay.
close this out. And again, like I said, everybody, here we are, end of another great show. Thank you so much for being here with us. A little bit different, little bit. We didn't get our one break in. Some of the banners, I don't know. And I'm in and out, and I'm probably sure I'm in and out right now for you guys. So I'll try to quickly run through this and get us out of here. So, like I say all the time here, definitely click the like button, subscribe if you can, hit the bell notifications, share with all of your friends, let them know we're here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and 7 p.m. for all of you over there in the UK. And follow all of the links down in the description below to our guest, Bill Thorness. You can get a copy of our book, Cool Season Gardener. Look towards getting our next book, The Triumph of Seeds by Thor Hansen. And yeah, check out all those links down below. Also, I don't know what we're going to be doing and what we're up for next week as we're working through these technical difficulties, all of that sort of stuff. Keep an eye on our page, our homepage. I'll try to put up a post here within the next day or so to give you guys an update about what's going on when it comes to all of that. We're just having fun here. We're just trying to figure it out through, and I'm sure that here eventually we'll get everything tightened right back up to the way it's supposed to be and get shows going back to normal. But again, thank you everybody for being here, and I look forward to seeing all of you again on our next show. Hopefully everything's good. We'll see all of you then.
Power out.